It was episode 1217. You can check it out if you want. They were talking about feelings, and I was like, wow, that's pretty accurate. Now, and I'll go back to say, look, I'm not perfect. I think everybody knows that. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes every day. I try not to, and I try to correct the mistakes that I make. And I don't want to see anyone go through bad times, and I don't want to see anyone have to deal with horrible situations. And I pray for all those people. I honestly do. As a matter of fact, I was at church yesterday saying some prayers. Of course, I pray for my family. I pray for the health of all my kids. And I keep Hebrewites in my prayers, and I keep your counsel in my prayers, and I keep, I think it's important. I don't hate anyone, and I want that on this last podcast. I want that to be clear. Look, I may disagree politically with people, but I don't hate them. And folks may disagree with me, and they may not hate me, and that's great, and I hope so. But politics, and I was talking about a podcast. I'll play this real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about politics. But so I was listening to the Adam and Dr. Drew show, and they were talking about feelings, and I was like, wow, that makes sense. Here's that.
So I realized I've talked to now lots of people.
Wait, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I got to give a warning because, and maybe not all the time on this, well, rarely on this podcast, I may say a damn or something, but he does say the F word. All right, so just a quick heads up. There are a cuss word, maybe two, on this clip, so I apologize up front. I just wanted to warn you. We'll try this again.
So I realized I've talked to now lots of people who have no fucking idea what's going on around them in their workplace or beyond. Those same people are now chock-a-block filled with feelings about stuff they know. They know what's going on at the border. They know that Dr. Drew's running against Adam Schiff. They know. So as we've pushed out the actual information, it's been replaced with feelings about stuff. So now they have no information, yet they have all the information in the world, which is they know.
Okay, so I will add to that. Not only that, one of the feelings is conviction. They
Yes.
don't have deep conviction and no understanding of the difference between information and knowledge. So they think they have the information, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Yes.
Get that?
All right. So I thought that was very interesting, the way they were discussing that. And you can check out that episode if you want. It's a good podcast. Politics has a way of dividing us. By design almost. At least nowadays, right? You're either a Democrat or a Republican. For most. I know some of us like to say we're independents, but I don't know anymore. I mean, it's either the Democrat candidate or the Republican candidate for president. Local politics, those lines are a little more blurred because there are friendships involved in local politics because our neighbors are the council member or our kid's friend is the council member. So there's friendships involved. So then the sides are chosen not on party, but on friendships or cliques even. It's almost like high school cliques in Huber Heights. And how is that serving the citizens of Huber Heights? I don't think it's serving the citizens of Huber Heights very well. And I've tried to do my best to point that out. Sometimes I was guilty of it myself, getting in the middle of certain things. Or agreeing more so with some folks than others. And I think that's something that over the last few weeks I've looked at and thought, wow, you know what? The podcast, it used to be fun. I used to enjoy watching the council meetings and trying to look at the charter and say, oh, how does that fit? Or watch the council meetings and figure out what topic was interesting to talk about next on the podcast. Or, point out, hey, this isn't right. You guys need to look at that. Or teach different things. And it began not to be fun when the purpose started to blur. So we got to quit. Got to stop. Whatever. And it's not for me to do anymore. I do. I live in Beaver Creek. Before, when I started the podcast in Texas, I was moving back to Huber Heights. I did move back to Huber Heights. We had a place. Things changed. We ended up in Beaver Creek. That happens, doesn't it? People end up in Beaver Creek. But I think what needs to happen, and this is my opinion here, I think what needs to truly happen is that the leaders of the city or of the citizenry, there are folks who are just out there helping out, volunteering their time, doing things. There needs to be a come to Jesus moment, if you will, where they just stop with all the bickering and trying to get back at each other. Stop all the vindication. And work toward a common solution. And there are folks that I have to be right all the time, and if I'm not, I'm going to do something about it. Well, that's got to end. I think it does. In order for real progress to happen in Huber Heights. And if it doesn't, then, I read an article the other day where it lists cities and ranks. And I think Huber Heights has potential to move up. But I think the political harshness in the city, which is another reason why I'm stopping this podcast. Maybe I can help a little bit by stop bringing things up. Stop doing a podcast every week. Stop talking about this stuff. Maybe if I'm trying to slow down on the social media stuff. I mean, that's a little part of it. Maybe, I don't know. I know there, a lot, sometimes when I look, there's quite a few people who've listened to the podcast and I'm like, wow, okay. So maybe if I quit. So I'll start. Everybody else, I hope, and there's a lot of people that listen to it. So I hope what they decide is, okay, what is best for Huber Heights is that we just stop all the silliness, stop all the political back and forth, truly adhere to the charter. And if you do that as a standard for all, then that standard is known and nothing gets past it. And then there's nowhere to say, oh, well, you did it for one, but you're not doing it for the other. So whatever the charter says do, that would be nice. That would be a start. But I mean, there's a lot of work to be done with that. And folks need to learn how to work together in this city. And citizens need to hold their government accountable. That doesn't change. Because there may be folks in government who won't change. And that's where the citizens come in. You hold them accountable so they do change or they go away. I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone has all the answers, but working together, you guys are going to have to work together to get the answers. I truly love the city of Huber Heights, the city that I come from, my hometown. When I came home from the hospital as a baby, I ended up in Wayne Township, Countryside Acres. It's still there. And then growing up, we used to run through the field that is now Bent Tree Apartments. Run over to the farmer's barn, climb up in the loft, hang out. And back in those days, you came home when the street lights were on. I remember getting my ass whooped for spray painting on my driveway on Lamons Lane. I remember running over to Drug Castle and buying baseball cards, trading with my friends, hitting dialed trails, walking through the halls of Studebaker or Monticello or Wayne, going to the Wayne game, and then when the Wayne game was over, you head over to Frisch's with your parents, playing football at Community Park, walking up Fishburg, or going over to Taco Bell when Batman came out to get the cup, hanging out at Golden Q, talking to Frank. You know, all these things. That's why I love Huber Heights. That's why I will still love Huber Heights. And if I can do anything to help, I will. But I think maybe getting into the politics, there's a small part of me that thinks that may have been a mistake. I don't know. I mean, all of my opinions and all the things that I feel are genuine. I do care about government. I do care about all that. You know, there's a lot of things rolling around my head right now. But I wish things were better. I thought maybe if I talk about it, I could help move things in a better direction. I don't know. I don't know. I know more people are paying attention. It's just no one different is stepping forward to say, hey, break this up. You too, cut it out. Follow the charter, do your jobs. Anyway, yeah, this has been a fun journey. I am going to do another podcast, but it's going to be something different, outside, way outside. Well, maybe not way outside, but outside of politics a majority of the time. I do enjoy talking to folks who have cool stories, so I might go down that road. I started that way and then got sucked back into the politics of Huber Heights. And hopefully I don't anymore. I will pay attention because I think it's interesting. And I do have family and friends. I'm in Huber Heights all the time, so I'll probably pay attention to see what's going on. And hope for the best. And I will keep you all in my prayers. Keep me in your prayers if you swing that way. All right? I appreciate you all listening to the podcast. All of them. And when a new one comes out and I start talking to other folks, I will let everyone know on the Facebook page. But in the meantime, hope you all have a good week, good year, and thanks.
Thank you for listening to Truman's Town Hall. Share this podcast with your friends and neighbors and subscribe today.